What's up guys, it's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another deck and battle video for you here on PTCGO. And this time we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of a roguish deck that myself and Marcus from the channel have been testing out. Now that the recent Salamence EX promo card has finally come out, it kind of gave us the idea maybe to try out some sort of dragon toolbox deck, and so that's what we're going to be looking at here today. It's cool we feature Giratina and Salamence as our main attackers, but we have a couple other cute cards in here as well. So let's just get right into it and see what the deck is going to be about. So probably our main attacker is going to be Giratina EX. We're going to lead with this guy. Has the ability Renegade Pulse, so prevents all effects of attacks, including damage, done to him by Mega Pokemon, which is great because you wall against things like Mega Rayquaza, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Scizor. I think those are probably that and Mewtwo are probably the most popular megas currently. So it's great that you're immune from all of those guys unless they play something like a Hex Maniac or Silent Lab or something like that to shut you down. So a very disruptive ability, and the attack is kind of the same. Has the attack Chaos Wheel for a Grass, Psychic, and 2 colorless. Your opponent can't play any Tool, Special Energy, or Stadium cards from his or her hand. So we're probably going to two-shot them since the attack is 100 or 110 if you have a Fighting Fury belt. But even though we're two-shotting our opponent, we are kind of disrupting them since they can't play a lot of those cards, since things like Float Stones, Spirit Links, and Fighting Fury belts are popular tools. Almost every deck plays a Stadium, and a lot of decks like Yveltal Garbodor, which is probably the most dominant deck currently, plays Special Energies. So just a very disruptive card to have. Is weak to Fairy, which is somewhat of a problem. That means Rainbow Road is kind of going to be a bad matchup. Actually, all of our attackers are weak to Fairy, so Rainbow Road is definitely a bad matchup for you. And potentially Mega Gardevoir as well, since even though you are immune to them, they do play usually 1 to 2 copies of Hex Maniac. But hopefully you can beat Mega Gardevoir thanks to the ability Renegade Pulse. But yes, that's Giratina. He's going to be our primary attacker. Does have 3 retreat costs, but we are going to have a way to get around that, which we'll go over in a second. The other, I'd say, main attacker is going to be Salamence EX. So we're just running one of this guy, but it's a new promo card. We actually did an unboxing video featuring this guy. If you want to go check that out, I'll be sure to put a link somewhere. But 180 hit points. Pretty standard for EX, very weak, but we're looking at mainly for this attack Beastly Fang. So it does 10 plus 50 more for every EX your opponent has in play. So this is just so good because a lot of decks will bench 3 to 4 EXs, and the math just works out so nicely. So let's say you're going against an Yveltal deck, just for the sake of example. Let's say they have 2 Yveltal EXs and a Shaman on the board. With a Fighting Fury belt, you're hitting for 170, which is just such a good number against so many different Pokemon. Mega Rayquaza, I think, is already an auto-win just because of Giratina, but with Salamence as well, it's so easy just to sweep pretty much any attacker they get set up because this attack is just so strong. So basically Fang is definitely the reason we are playing Salamence, but nevertheless it does have another attack which actually is useful in certain situations. Dragon Strike for a Fire, Water, and 2 colorless does 130, and this Pokemon can't use Dragon Strike on the following turn. So why would you ever want to use this over Beastly Fang? And the main reason is going to be mainly for Greninja. That's the big one. You can knock out Greninjas in one hit. We have no other way to knock them out. You can also knock out Xerneas from Rainbow Road. We have not many other ways to do that in one hit in this deck. And also, if they just decide to play around Beastly Fang and only bench maybe their non-EX attackers, let's say in the case of the Yveltal deck I just referenced, if they're only playing down maybe the Fright Knight Yveltals and trying to play around your Beastly Fang, you still have another way to take one-hit knockouts. So Salamence is definitely a great backup attacker in this deck. So getting on to kind of what makes this deck tick is going to be the next 2 Dragon Pokemon. They've kind of been around for a while. First one's going to be Hydreigon EX. So Dragon type has the ability Dragon Road. If there's a Stadium card in play, the retreat cost of each of your Dragon Pokemon is 2 less. So that's really cool because there's usually a Stadium in play either by us or our opponent. so it makes our dragon Pokemon a lot more nimble, gives our board a bit more mobility. And the attack shred is also good too if we play against something like a Giratina EX or even a Stardust Jirachi or a Regice or something. Shred is actually pretty decent because it goes through any effects on your opponent's Pokemon. Then next up we have two of the Turbo Blaze Reshiram. So this is another cool card. It has the ability Turbo Blaze. Once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon is your active, you may attach a fire energy from your hand to one of your dragon Pokemon. So that's cool. It gives us an additional form of energy acceleration, and it only has a 2 retreat cost, so that means we only need one Hydreigon EX in play to have free retreat on this guy. And it does have an attack. You don't use it too often, but there's certain situations where it might come in handy. But just 4 energy to do 110, not that great when you compare it to Chaos Wheel or Beastly Fang, but it's there. And so the last dragon Pokemon we're going to talk about is going to be one Flygon EX. So we're taking a look at this for the ability Voice of the Sands. Once during your turn, before you attack, if this Pokemon is your active, you may have your opponent switch his or her active with one of their bench Pokemon. So this is great because it has a 2 retreat cost, which means if your opponent tries to maybe attack with an attacker that has a better prize exchange, like a non-EX, you can use Voice of the Sands to force them to promote someone else. So just a very strong ability, especially if one of your Pokemon gets knocked out, you can promote your Flygon for the turn, use this ability to force your opponent to switch, and then free retreat thanks to Hydreigon EX. Okay, and the last of the Pokemon we're going to take a look at is going to be 2 Shaman, obvious reasons for the ability setup, and then 1 Hoopa EX for the Scoundrelling ability. So almost everything in this deck is an EX. So Hoopa is just so strong, it's too good not to play in this deck. I even found that games where I prized my Hoopa, it significantly hurts my first turn sometimes. So just such a strong card in this deck. That's going to be it for the Pokemon. Going on to the supporters, we have 4 Professor Sycamore, discard your hand and draw 7. Pretty self-explanatory, strongest draw supporter in the game currently. 2 N, so each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws equal to the amount of prize cards they have left. So we definitely want to play more Sycamore than N, just because we don't have any evolutions or anything like that. So typically we can play down our hand to only a few cards than Sycamore. Also, this deck is very fast setting up. It's not uncommon to even get a turn 1 Giratina or Salamence powered up. So we typically are going to be the ones to take prizes first. So we definitely want to play a smaller count of N. 1 Ninja Boy. So this is actually a cool card since it is somewhat of a toolbox deck. I do like Ninja Boy in decks like this. So Ninja Boy is one of these cool cards that came out in Steam Siege. You get to choose one of your basic Pokemon in play and basically replace it with a different one in your deck. But the new Pokemon still keeps all of the same damage counters, special conditions, etc. that were already on it. So this is cool because let's say you're attacking with your Salamence EX and your opponent decides to try to play around your Beastly Fang attack, and so limiting your damage output. So you can potentially Ninja Boy into a Giratina and decide to attack with that instead. But there's just all sorts of situations, like let's say you start with your Shaman, you can Ninja Boy it back into the deck, putting up or replacing it with, let's just say, a Reshiram. Since that Reshiram's in the active spot, you can use its ability, and your Shaman is back into your deck for you to still use. So Ninja Boy is a very nice card in this deck. I pretty much exclusively like Ninja Boy in toolbox style decks, so I felt like it was appropriate here. 2 Lysander. So Giratina is probably going to be the attacker we are going to use most of the time, which means that we are going to be taking 2-hit knockouts, so I definitely like the 2 count of Lysander here. And then 1 Hex Maniac. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, each Pokemon in play has no abilities, so this is mainly for Greninja and Greninja Break, since this deck has a horrible prize exchange against that deck. Even though you are very, very fast and can potentially outspeed them, I definitely think you will need Hex Maniac at some point in that matchup if you intend to win it. Okay, so for versus Secret, just to reuse all of those different supporter cards we've been talking about. Then a couple of standard consistency inclusions like for Ultra Ball, just to discard 2 cards from your hand and draw any Pokemon out of your deck. For Trainer's Mail, get to choose a training card off the top 4 cards of your deck. And things are going to get a little interesting here. We're not playing any float stones or anything of that nature, since most of the time we can retreat for free thanks to Hydreigon and Hydreigon EX. Or I'm sorry, thanks to Hydreigon EX. But the reason we're playing standard switching cards as opposed to Floatstone is because there's a lot of times we need to switch our active Pokemon multiple times in a turn. So let's say we want to promote a Flygon EX after something gets knocked out. So we promote Flygon EX, use its ability, switch into a Reshiram to use its ability, and then retreat for the turn into an attacker. So I've definitely found that switching cards, traditional switching cards, are much more effective in this deck as opposed to your standard float stones. So, yep, definitely favoring these types of cards. So we're playing 2 switch and then 1 escape rope as well. Escape rope, basically the same thing, but it also forces your opponent to switch, which can be kind of cool sometimes as well. So we're playing 1 special charge. You get 2 special energy from your discard pile back into your deck. All of our attackers are very dependent on double dragon energy. Other than maybe Salamence, it can use just fires, but typically we have double dragons on it as well. So in case we have to Sycamore some away or they get enhanced hammered at some point, we can get them back into our deck. 1 Super Rod, just a nice form of recovery. Maybe shuffle some energy back into our deck. That way we can use Max Elixir, or if our Salamence or something gets knocked out, we can get it back as well. 3 Max Elixir, so look at the top 6 cards of your deck, attach a basic energy you find there to a basic Pokemon on your bench. So our whole deck is basic Pokemon. Max Elixir is nice, just lets us get our attackers up and going a little bit quicker. Between this and the basic Reshiram, like I said, it's not uncommon to even get something like a turn 1 Giratina in this deck. So definitely a very, very speedy deck. Very easy to power up your attackers, despite them having big attack costs. Okay, so then we just have 3 Fighting Fury Belt. Gives our basic Pokemon 40 more hit points, and they do 10 more damage to your opponent's active. The 10 damage is definitely important for certain matchups. Giratina will be able to 2-shot things like Mega Mewtwo, Mega Rayquaza, even Fighting Fury Belted EXs as well. So Fighting Fury Belt, definitely a key card in this deck. 3 Skyfield lets each player have 8 bench Pokemon. So this is cool because it allows us to play aggressively with our Hoopa and just bench a lot of Shaymins and basically just fill our board up with as much stuff as we want. So that's why we are favoring Skyfield. But nevertheless, we are going to also play 1 Parallel City. Parallel City is just so good against so many different decks, especially since we play Giratina. I feel like it's too good not to lock a Parallel City in play. So it's also good against things like Rainbow Road, which is a bad matchup for this deck, very bad matchup, and maybe even Mega Gardevoir as well. So it's just a very strong card. If the blue side is facing, whoever the blue side is facing, they can only have 3 bench Pokemon. So like I said, if you can attack with Giratina and have Parallel City in play, it's just so strong in certain matchups. But most of the time, we do prefer Skyfield. And just to round out the list, we're going to take a look at 4 Double Dragon Energy. So it can only be attached to Dragon Pokemon, but it provides 2 energies of any type. So that's how we are going to fulfill these weird attack costs that our Pokemon have. And then also 8 basic Fire Energy, just to finish powering up our attackers. And since Reshiram can also accelerate fires, that's why we are playing Fire Energy as opposed to a different type of basic energy. So yeah, guys, that is going to be the list we're going to try out for this deck. Definitely a very fun deck. I always like toolbox style decks, and definitely nice to be able to use some of these obscure cards like Flygon and even Salamence, which is kind of a new card. It's fresh. Everyone kind of wants to try it out right now. But yeah, that's the list we're going to take a look at. I'm going to switch over to the battle portion of the video. That way you guys can see how this looks in action, okay? Alright guys, so let's see if our dragon toolbox deck can squeak out a win here. So our opponent called the coin flip, which we do lose, which kind of annoying, but nevertheless, this deck can actually have some really explosive first turns where you get like a turn 1 Salamence or Giratina, so I'm not feeling too bad about this. So our opponent has a Glaceon, so that tells me this is probably some sort of water toolbox deck, or maybe a Vileplume deck. So here opponent is going to end us, which is a little unfortunate. I thought our hand was workable, and this one not so much. So hopefully we can get something good off this trainer's mail, otherwise we are not going to be in good shape. Okay, so we need Ultra Ball, and we get it, so that's actually really good. Ultra Ball is probably the best card you could see on the first turn. So we're definitely going to play that guy, discard Hex Maniac, and probably switch. I kind of want to keep Escape Rope in this matchup since Jolteon's, the effect of Jolteon's attack is really annoying since it blocks the damage from basic Pokemon. So we're going to grab Hoopa and just take a look through our deck to see what is prized. We do have a DDE prized, which is slightly annoying, but we do have 3 others and a special charge, so we should be in good shape. So we're going to play Hoopa, probably grab ourselves a Shaman, a Hydreigon, and then an attacker of some sort. So I'm thinking probably Salamence actually, since we will have actually an opportunity to get a knockout here as well. So Salamence will attach a DDE for sure, and let's see, we play Shaman. We really want to hit a fire energy here, and that way we can get a knockout. But we do whiff. So that definitely makes this hand a little bit worse. Next turn we will be able to attach our other DDE and get a knockout here, but definitely would have preferred the fire energy. That way we could have knocked out at least that Shaman or Jolteon. But here our opponent is going to play an N, which I don't mind at all. Our hand was workable, but we didn't have a supporter. So yeah, this is a little bit better. Okay, so it looks like our opponent's playing some sort of Evolution Garbodor deck, so they're all about disruption and trying to make us not be able to attack, it looks like. Okay, so we're going to use Turbo Blaze. I don't know, we should probably Trainer's Mail first, so let's do that. And we either get Sycamore or Fury Belt, but I kind of think Fury Belt. I'd like to save this Versus Seeker and some of this energy if possible. So I think Fury Belt's probably the way to go here. Because, yeah, now we can get a Fury Belt on our Hydreigon EX, which will probably be actually an important card in this matchup. We're going to use Turbo Blaze, put a fire on it because its Shred Attack does go through effects, like Jolteon's Flash Ray. So here we will end. And, okay, we definitely want to bump their Stadium, but I actually kind of like going the Parallel City route, because here we can actually bench a Giratina, I think. And Parallel City ourselves, getting rid of our Shaman and Hoopa. So that seems pretty good to me. And if they have something like a Regice in there, it'll also reduce its damage output as well. So I like this. And if our opponent doesn't end us, we can just play down this Skyfield on the next turn to free up our bench again. Okay, so here we'll do 90. And I'm feeling pretty good because we go through Flash Ray. They have to 4-shot us because of this Fury Belt. And we only 2-shot them, so I think we're doing pretty good here. If our opponent does get Fury Belt of their own, that will mess us up a little bit, but so we'll see what happens, since it will turn their 4-shot into a 3-shot, and they do get the Fury Belt, of course, and that means we have to 3-shot them as well. But I'm not too worried, actually. I think we're still in a decent spot. So who do we attach this DDE to? We could go for Salamence. We could also spread our energy out and put one on Giratina. I think either option is fine here. And then just Sycamore. Okay, so what do we do here? Definitely Fury Belt this Giratina. Other than that, I really don't know what else we really want this turn. I think we can just hang on to this hand and kind of just save it for next turn. So we're going to Shred, do another 90 damage to this Jolteon, And right now it's their only powered up attacker, so again, I'm feeling pretty good. But our opponent is going to max elixir, so they... Okay, so they get... Okay, so they have the other Jolteon fully powered, so that is a little annoying because now we won't be able to take a knockout on this one. And they play Lugia as well, that's interesting. Okay, so we have a max elixir of our own, so... Okay, really this turn, I think what we need to do, we need to get an energy on this Salamence, and we need a Lysander here, because we have an escape rope. If we can escape rope and Lysander this same Jolteon, all they will have is that damaged Jolteon left over, because whenever you escape rope and your opponent leaves the active, it clears the effect. Okay, unfortunately we whiffed that, but I think we kind of just go all in and we still escape rope here. So we'll do that. Probably switch into our Flygon. I like that. Give us the option to use its ability if we choose to. So we need Lysander and a fire. Do we get it? Okay, so we got the fire. Do we get Lysander? And we whiff it. So not what you like to see. But I don't know. We're still okay because we can just go and attach this fire energy to our Salamence and take an easy knockout on this Glaceon, going down to 4 prizes. So I imagine we would, at some point in this game, have to take some Lysander KOs anyways, so this is kind of one of them. I'm kind of thinking our path to victory is taking out one Jolteon with Hydreigon, and then taking 2 other knockouts with Lysanders. So we've kind of accomplished one of those goals already, and we have 2 Lysanders left, and 4 Versus Seekers, so I think we have a ton of outs to actually closing out this game here. Okay, our opponent's going to Parallel City us, which is kind of annoying. So we'll get rid of Reshiram, probably one of the Giratinas. And who do we keep? There's pros and cons to each of them, but I don't know. I think we probably should have held onto this Flygon. Yeah, I think that's actually a bad misplay here, because now, okay, if we had Flygon in place of Reshiram, we could retreat to that, force our opponent to switch this Jolteon out of the active spot, and then switch back into our Salamence and Lysander up the Jolteon for the knockout here. Ugh, yeah, that's definitely a bad misplay, I think. So, I apologize for that, guys, but again, I still think we're kind of okay, though, because here we can Lysander, taking yet another knockout. Probably go for Lugia. I think that's one of his biggest threats since it trades very favorably with our EXs. So let's go ahead and take that guy out. Do another 270, so Salamence just so strong here. And then we still have 1 Lysander and 3 Versus Seeker left over to take the final knockout on a Shaman or that damaged Jolteon. So again, I'm still feeling pretty good about where we're at right now. So our opponent is going to Super Odd. Let's see what they just had to get back. Lugia and 2 energy, that seems fine to me. And just a Sycamore, so... Alright, at least we did not get end. And our opponent is going to Flash Ray for 70. Okay, so here what do? We can't win this turn, but what I'm thinking we might be able to do is, instead of attacking with this damaged Hydreigon, what if we power up this Reshiram, the Ninja Boy, into our other Hydreigon EX? That way we can still hit Jolteon, 2-shot it, and it won't get knocked out. So I'm thinking we can afford to do that this turn. So I think that's kind of an okay move. Here we're going to switch. We didn't have to, but I think maybe just did it to thin it out of our deck. That way we don't draw into it again. So we'll Turbo Blaze, use its ability while we can, and Ninja Boy to get our Hydreigon. Oh. So it's not in the deck. That's actually a really bad misplay. So guys, I am scrubbing it up today on this video. I apologize. So here we just have to attack with this damaged Hydreigon. And as long as they don't get Fury Belt, we can actually survive a hit here, if I'm not mistaken. Because they're only going to do 70 to us, and Hydreigon has, I think, 180 hit points before the Fury Belt. I think? I can't see it with this screen in the way. Yeah, so I'm still feeling kind of okay. And we do still have this Sycamore. It is unfortunate our opponents did delinquent our hand away. We had to get rid of a special charge as well. But I don't know. I think it's still looking good for us. Like I said, we have a lot of very good resources still left in the deck. And we can actually survive a hit too, as long as our opponent doesn't get Fury Belt here. Oh, wait, never mind. I can't math. This is probably why I miss playing, guys. I can't even do math in a game that requires good math. So our Hydreigon does get knocked out, but we top deck Versus Seeker to get our Lysander anyways. So we can just Lysander up Shaman or one of these damaged Jolteons and take a knockout here. So yeah, even despite a couple little suboptimal plays against a deck that locks out basic attackers, we still actually took a pretty convincing game. Salamence did like 600 damage that game just between 2 attacks, something like that. So definitely showing off how strong of a card Salamence is. Definitely would not be surprised to see this pop up at regionals if you guys plan on going. So very strong card for sure. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. As usual, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our merch over at rarecandytcg.com. If you could pick up a shirt, playmat, dice bag, or something to help support the channel, it would mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you for the next one.